All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Live Wire. I am your host, Jared Moore, as usual, and Live Wire is the program where we take your questions from the chat. So if you have a question about the topic, pop it into the chat. We'll try to get it asked. Today, we're going to be talking with Dr. Kirsten C. Kunkle. She is the leading Native American soprano in the modern classical music world. And we are going to be talking about Chicago Currents, which is an upcoming song extravaganza event that's going to happen, that's going to partially honor Native Americans from the Chicago area. But before I give too many details, thank you so much for coming on the show today, Dr. Kunkle.
It's Jared. Stongo, how's everything going?
It's going great, and it's getting even better now that you're back because you're one of the guests that comes back at a periodic time. You always have something happening, something going on. So I guess we should start off with Chicago Currents. Could you tell us, what is it? What's it all about?
Well, this is a really interesting and different program than what I normally get to do. Normally, I will be doing either a full opera or scenes or something like that, or maybe just a recital. But this is a staged production of art song. So it's like a recital, but it's staged with 5 different singers. And it's being produced by Chicago Fringe Opera. And I specifically was brought onto the project as a composer for this event, and they actually commissioned a piece for me to write with the idea of writing about Chicago waterways. So I wrote my own poetry again, and I wrote the music for it. They wanted piano, voice, and violin. So this is my first time writing for violin at all. And so it's another chamber piece. It's about 10 minutes long, and it closes out the concert. I'm also being brought on as a consultant for the project because part of the goal of the project is to be kind of like a musical land acknowledgement for the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi tribes. Since I am not those tribes, I'm speaking on the grander Native scale, but I'm also trying to be representative of things that are respectful and approaching everything in a way that is honoring the people as opposed to just making assumptions and fulfilling stereotypes. So it's really kind of exciting because I've never done anything quite like this, and it's not a common thing to do. So I was brought into this project by a lovely mezzo-soprano who's also doing creative consulting on it, and the reason they knew about me is because one of my very, very close friends, Kathy O'Shaughnessy, is their music director for the overall company. And she's been mentioning my name around Chicago for years. And I had done La Boheme with them, with Kathy's company she had started once upon a time, called Windy City Opera. But I haven't been back since to perform. And so now I'm really excited about this. And it's not just art song. We are doing a couple of musical theater pieces as well, obscure musical theater pieces that I had never heard before. There's also some choral works. There's a work by Andrew Balfour, who's of Cree descent, who wrote a piece called Ambe. It's on Ojibwe poetry, and it's an Ojibwe song that he arranged for choral. A choral situation. We're actually doing it with 5 people. So it's tricky because it's not typical of what I do. I tend to sing classical music and solo classical music. So it's been really interesting and exciting. I don't leave for Chicago until March 10th. So right now everything is still in the preparation stage, but all the music has been divvied up, and my piece is pretty much ready to go. I'm really excited about my contribution to it, and I hope it's something that I'll get to perform again. I'm calling it a monodrama or a shena, a full scene, because it really does tell an entire story in 10 minutes. I didn't set out to write a 10-minute piece. They actually wanted a 5-minute short piece, or shorter. And once I got going, I asked them, I said, can we please, adjust this in the contract so that I can make it longer,
Right,
and
right.
they were fine with it. So it's really its own special moment within itself for within the greater piece.
So when you mention art song, is that a format? Is that a format?
Yeah.
You might explain that for the audience, for people who might not know what art song is.
Absolutely. I live in my musical world of classical music, and I forget these things sometimes, but thank you for mentioning that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Art song is a piece usually for piano and voice set to poetry. So it's basically what you would anticipate if you saw a singer singing with piano at any concert. They're probably art songs. You might hear opera, you might hear some other things at a regular recital, but art songs tend to be any song that's not from a bigger piece by itself. So truly all of those Alex Posey things I've done, I'm also doing some of those on this concert too. We've talked about those in the past. I had commissioned works by my great uncle, Alex Posey, who, hopefully people know that name, but if you don't, he was known as the bard of the Muskogee Nation for many, many years, and may still be. But I had set some of his poetry, or had some of his poetry set to music by other composers. And so I'm singing 3 of those pieces on this concert as well. I'm also resurrecting, if you will, the Fire duet. It's called Fire by Ian Couson, which I sang with Kate Morton at Yellowstone as well.
Okay.
So it's a very big program. It's a lot of singing for me. So it's like I said, 5 people. We're all featured about equally, and
awesome.
It's exciting. Yeah.
So they're also in the press release, I think it was, for the Chicago Currents, they mentioned Joy Harjo or her poetry. How is that going to be incorporated?
So Joy Harjo's poetry is actually the basis of the Fire duet that Ian had written. I don't believe there's anything else that Joy did, but I know that she's represented through that. Awesome. And it's a beautiful poem. It's sung for 2 women, and it's about, being there's a quote about being the voice of the mountain, and that being a woman is not just a singular thing. It's much greater than what it seems on the surface. So it's a beautiful poem. I'm glad I get to sing it again.
So the performance, before we get too far, when is this going to happen and where?
Okay, so it is in Chicago on the north end. And if you go to the Chicago Fringe Opera website, which is just www.chicagofringeopera.com, you can go to Chicago Currents, you can buy tickets, and everything should be there. All the information should be there. It's kind of, I believe, a bit of a black box theater, and they're going to be bringing in, native plants to the area and things like that to kind of make it even more based in nature. That's kind of the plan for the grand scheme of the staging. It's an interesting concept. I'm really excited to get with the director and the music director and actually put it all together.
Awesome. Well, we've had you on the program many times, and one of the...
And I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Well, we're grateful to have you because it's very interesting. Previously, we spoke about Girondins, the French Revolutionary opera that was done, or was it an opera as a libretto?
I wrote the libretto for the opera, so I wrote the story and all the words, but it is a full opera.
Okay, so and you were saying that the album is out now. Do you want to plug that? Where can people get it?
I would love to plug that. So one of my roles is that I'm the artistic director and co-founder of Wilmington Concert Opera out of Wilmington, Delaware. It's a small opera company that has grown. There are only 2 of us that are officially on staff, my business partner, Marissa Robinson, and me. And together we produced this opera that I had written the story for and the libretto. So the libretto is the words to the opera. That's just another term. Mm-hmm. And then I collaborated with a wonderful composer named Sarah Van Sciver. She's from California. And we wrote this opera. And it's about women during the French Revolution, but it kind of transcends everything that happened during the French Revolution into our own time. Unfortunately, there are many injustices that are still happening, and it's it's something that we can relate to on a native level with all the MMIW awful things happening, etc. So I mean, it's a very profound and timely piece, I believe. And the exciting news is that we had done a recording. We had done a live recording from it and had a wonderful audio engineer, and we have released an album. So currently you can find it on Spotify. You can find the entire thing on YouTube if you like. You just type in Girondines. You can type in my name. You'll definitely find it.
Awesome.
But we actually have a website that will link you to everything. It's a link tree. So it's linktr.ee/Girondines. And that's Girondines.
And just to jump in there, guys, that link tree is in the description of this video. So if you wanted to not have to type anything, you can just click that link in there and it'll take you to, I'm assuming, everywhere they could get it, right?
Pretty much, yeah. And it's got also all of our websites for everybody who's on the album, including the instrumentalists, and just information, the various press that we've gotten for it. Actually, our video, I believe, is linked to it, or it might be the Muskogee News, actual print article too, Mvskoke Media print article. Awesome. I'm not sure which is linked, but one of the two is linked from when we talked about it before. So it's pretty exciting, and so that's really just one of the big things that's been happening in my life right now is getting this album out and trying to make sure people hear it. And we're so proud of it. It is, I'm proud of it from a personal level because, I wrote it. I wrote this text, but also that the women that we hired to sing these roles were just so committed and professional. And I mean, they sound fantastic. They absolutely sound fantastic. Yeah. We also have a cellist and a violinist on that recording, as well as Sarah, who played the piano for it, the composer. And every single person on the recording gave 100%. And it's just stunning. It's just a beautiful piece, and I'm very proud of it. It's a highlight of my career so far. And I'm so glad that I get to share it with, the Muskogee tribe too, through this. And hopefully some of you will go out and listen to it and spread the word.
Yeah, check it out. And I want to mention to everybody, too, if you have any questions about what it's like as an opera soprano or as an artistic director or as a librettist, I think is also on there, pop it into the chat. I don't see any questions yet, but, you got time. One of the other things that we talked about when you were on last time was the composer Jared Tate's Turtle Shells project. Is there anything you can share? Because I know we were talking about where is it going to be?
Yeah, I need to update you on all that. Yeah. So the piece is actually called Shell Shaker, and it is still, we were supposed to actually be premiering it this week. It had been postponed once, and it got postponed again, and now we were postponed a third time. But the end is in sight, and Jared has so many projects and so many commissions, and he wants it to be his best work that he can give. So we're taking the time to make sure that it's the best work that he can give and the best work that we can do. And I hope that I'll be able to give you more insight into that next time I talk to you, whenever that might be. But I believe the plan for now is October 2024. So we've got a little time.
And is that still going to be where it was, or is it going to come to Oklahoma? Because I know we had, in an email exchange, we had talked about that.
I'm not entirely sure. It hasn't been secured. I hope it'll come to Oklahoma as well. But I believe maybe both. That's the plan, I think, moving forward, is both. But on that, I'm just a singer. I'm not on the creative team. I mean, although I do give input, when Jared asks for it. But I don't have the ins and outs of the logistics like I do on the other projects, unfortunately.
Well,
but it's going to be fantastic. I'm so excited about it. The role I am going to be playing is the grandmother, the elder, and I'm very honored to be playing that role. And Jared's writing it for my voice. It's a spinto soprano role, and it uses a lot of Chickasaw folk song melodies, and I know that that's been incredibly important to him. And for anyone who hasn't heard about this already, it will be completely in the Chickasaw language. So I believe that will be a first, to have an opera completely in an American Indian tribal language. I know there have been some works in, mostly in Métis and things like that, but to have it be completely, one of the 5 quote civilized tribes, having that focus. I think it'll be really exciting.
Is that going to be a personal challenge for you? Because now you're going to have to do the Muskogee Creek one.
No, I'm actually really excited about it. I was a little overwhelmed by that at first because I thought, oh, it's going to be so different,
Right.
Because I do study Muskogee. I'm in the class. If you guys know about the class,
Right.
or I take the class. I take it 3 days a week with Mahaya Becky,
Mm-hmm.
and I love it. I love it, and I'm learning so much. And I say things here and there. My little daughter, she's 3, and the other day she's like, "Mama, can we do the alphabet in Muskogee?" And I'm like, "Oh, it just breaks my heart in the best ways. I'm so excited." And I'm like, "I'll try to do it from memory." But she's hearing it too, and that's really exciting for me. Because I grew up in Ohio, and I knew a couple phrases, and that's it. And not that my parents didn't want me to, we weren't exposed to it, and we didn't have the internet, like we do now. But to get back to your question, I have talked to Jared about that, and it's very phonetic for an English speaker. So while it's foreign to me, and I don't speak Chickasaw at all, it actually makes sense if you speak English. And it follows a lot of the English patterns. So there's nothing that's overtly difficult. I think Muskogee is quite difficult for people that speak English as a native language.
Right.
And so, there have been things like having to learn how to say vowels differently and things like that when I've been studying Muskogee. But it's not like that in Chickasaw. And I think it will actually be significantly easier. That being said, I know Jared has plans for me to be singing in multiple native languages. I don't believe Muskogee's one of them, so I should actually bring that up to him. But I know that down the road he's got something he's concocting that he has told me about, but it's not settled,
Right.
That he's told me you'll be singing 10 different languages in one piece, and I was like, oh wow, that's really cool. So we do have a librettist who is a Chickasaw speaker. He's a second speaker, but he's fluent, in as much as a second speaker can be fluent. His doctorate's in Chickasaw language. And that's Joshua Hinson. And so anytime we have any problems with that, we'll go to him directly, and I'm sure he'll help us out.
Awesome.
So I'm excited to work with him too, because he's he's very devoted to being very active with his language studies. So anything I think that gets our languages out there to more people to hear, whether they're native or not, I think it's just important because it brings representation, but it also keeps our language alive in a different way,
Right.
One thing that I just want to share from taking the Muskogee class is, if any of you have seen that class or been through it at all, and you know Mahaya Becky Barnett at all, she always starts telling stories, which is actually one of my favorite parts of the class because we're there for the language, but it always goes off into stories. And she'll tell us these Trail of Tears stories, and she always comes back to, this is why I'm teaching the language, to keep this alive.
Right.
And she always says, if our mothers carried that language through all of that and kept it alive, it's our duty to do the same. And I mean, that just touches me so deeply as a tribal citizen, as a mother, to be able to give what I can of that to my own child. So I'm excited about keeping alive other languages. I hope someday I'll have the opportunity to write a little bit in Muskogee and actually set it to music too.
Mm-hmm.
That's a personal goal of mine. And when I do, I will send you an email, Jared, and let you know about
All right. Awesome.
it.
And for the audience, I'll just jump in real quick. For the audience too, we have one of the runs of the language program on our YouTube channel. There's a big long playlist. I think it's like 40 or 50. You can go stick your toes into there. And then if you want to actually go into the Zoom classes that they have, I think how they do that is they get in touch with the language department and they get a link through them. Is that how you got involved in that?
Yeah, I mean, initially, I think I saw it on Facebook, actually.
Okay.
And then I might, they've been changing around the rooms and they keep changing what they're doing. For a while, they were emailing it. For a while, now I think it's back to just posting about it on Facebook and it's open to anyone.
Yeah.
For a while, we had to register.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they've kind of opened it back up to anyone now, because we definitely have some people who are not Muskogee or native at all in the class, but they're interested in, they're interested in language and
Yeah.
things like that. And they bring them in, they let them stay in the class and take it. So, I mean, I think as long as people are there for the right reasons, they're being respectful, I don't think anyone has a problem with anybody taking the course.
Yeah. And there's materials and stuff too that you get. So
Yeah, they have a Google Drive link that they share. And I mean, they can email it to you. Yeah, if you contact the language department, they'll get you squared away.
yeah, and it's a great program too. To learn all the ins and outs. That's it's interesting for me personally. You're saying you're going to be singing in Chickasaw. I have to learn Chickasaw in that range because my wife is Chickasaw, and that's one of the things that we always do is we compare the languages, like what the word for this is, and sometimes we will have like a dueling thing with our daughter because I will say, well, the Muskogee word for this is this, and then my wife will go, well, the Chickasaw word for this is this. And the teacher, and my daughter's like, what? So,
they're all close though. I mean,
they
really
are. It's similar.
I've had those conversations too. Where I was on the Native Chalk Talk podcast, which is run by Rachel Youngman, who's Choctaw, and she at some point was like, our word for bison, for buffalo, is Yanusa, and theirs is very similar. And she's like, isn't that the same? And I'm like, yeah, it is. I mean, I had to go look it up because I didn't know the word yet. But she was ahead of me on that one. But yeah, it was kind of neat just to be able to compare and contrast. And I mean, that's just one of the things that I find so exciting now, that I can do this. I can jump on a Zoom and I can learn from people who actually speak the languages. I can have these conversations. I can talk to you, Jared, and we can exchange a few little phrases, and you know what I'm saying, and
Absolutely.
I mostly know what you're saying.
Right.
And we're able to do that, and that's still so new. It's still so new, and I think because of I don't know that much good came out of the pandemic, but I do think that it helped with this kind of communication.
Yeah.
That we're able to do that, and so
Absolutely.
if you're looking on the bright side of things, I think that's one good thing that came out of all of that awfulness of dealing with the pandemic. Yeah.
Well, I don't see any questions popping up in the chat. Is there anything about Chicago currents or Girondins or anything else that you think is important you want to mention here while because we're getting close to the wrap time?
Sure. I would just love it if you all would, follow along with what I'm doing. I do so much. I'm constantly trying to be represented, the representative that I can be for not just Muskogee culture, but Native culture on a bigger scale within the classical musical realm. Go to my website. It's my name, KirstenCKunkle.com. I try to keep it pretty much updated, and I've got some other projects up my sleeve. I've got other things coming, and often, almost always, if I'm doing music that's new, there's either something that's Native involved or women involved, because those are the things that are important to me, and I feel like I can represent women, Native women in opera pretty well, and I hope that I continue to, and I want to be representative for the tribe, and I want to have people excited about what I do and be able to bring it back to all of you, and
Absolutely.
And do something special that maybe not everyone can do, and that's something I can bring.
Absolutely. Well, and I want to tell you too, you're a guest that we've had on several times, and I'm going to tell the audience, Dr. Kunkle does always have something on the horizon that she's shooting for. So that's a good thing to see a Muskogee citizen out there that's constantly pushing the envelope and trying to go into areas where you wouldn't see Muskogee citizens before. And so it's always nice to have those icebreakers out there that are forging the new paths. So I want to give you kudos on that. And I want to thank you for doing what you do, because it is something that's going to have a timeless impact on the history of the culture and really probably even the world. A lot of what you have done has been the first time it's ever been done. And with a historical tradition that opera has, that's really saying something, when in the modern era where we are right now with opera, you can do something that has never been done before, because there's been so much work produced. So
that's pretty true. I really appreciate that, Jared. So Mado, for that, I am very excited that if I can keep pushing the envelope in some way, and do something a little different, and it helps out somebody else in the future, then I think that's just, maybe that's my calling. I don't know.
All right. Well, guys, I think that's going to wrap us up for today. There's one question that popped up, but I'm not for sure. Dennis Shaw asks, any insight on Muskogee sweat ceremony? I'm not for sure what ceremony you're referring to.
I'm not sure either, unfortunately. I wish I had some insight on that. That sounds fascinating.
But send me a message, email me or contact me through YouTube, or you could send me an email at jmoore@muscogeemedia.com. That's the letter J and then MOORE at muscogeemedia.com, and that's MVSKOKE, the traditional spelling. Or go to our website. You can get my email there too. It's muscogeemedia.com, same spelling. And maybe we can do some investigation, get some clarification on the question that you're asking there. But without further ado, we're getting close to, I think we're going to wrap here in just a minute. I did want to mention to everybody that I've got some more live wires coming in the next couple of weeks. And we recently live streamed some Supreme Court oral arguments in the two Section 230 cases. If you guys like those, go in and check them out and make a comment there, because there's going to be another Supreme Court oral arguments next month on the 20th that's going to involve Navajo water rights. So if you guys want to see that, let me know. We're going to live stream it there too, and you can come into the chat and talk about it. So. And with that being said, thank you so much, Dr. Kunkle, for coming on. And thank you guys out there for watching the program. And I guess we're going to see you next time. Mado, Chihichaf, please.